So I used to spend a lot of time in Chicago. Like, I met this chick through the internet because I had a really popular blog in the really early 2000s, and it opened a bunch of weird doors for me, and one was to, like, literally visiting Chicago. This chick also had a blog, but we weren't, like, close or anything. She's just like, I really like your blog, and I like reading it. I want to send you a Valentine's Day card. Can I have your address? And it just didn't seem threatening, so I sent her my home address, where I lived with my parents. And she sent me, it was a heart-shaped card. And when I opened it, I pulled it out, like, from far away, it was just, like, a pink card. And when you pulled it open, like, it was, like, it was something clever, because when you looked up close, like, it was all just a bunch of STDs, like, photoshopped onto, like, the heart shape, you know? I was like, oh, this person's really clever. I like them. And we just started talking all the time, and then by November, we decided to meet. Like, we made a plan for me to fly to Chicago for Thanksgiving, and she was like, oh, I'll just ditch Thanksgiving and we can just, like, go to bars in Chicago, which, like, I didn't know, like, I'd only drink in LA, which is where, like, people drink to celebrate or to, like, mitigate the fact that they're not gonna achieve their dream. They're not gonna be like a superstar director, fucking famous actor. They're just gonna be some shitbag that lives in LA, and that's just like crushing for people. But in Chicago, it's fucking really, really cold, and the people are kind of ugly, and, like, you know, people are drinking to get through the fucking day. I just never experienced that before. So I flew in, and then we talked about books for, like, maybe, like, the first 6 hours. And then she was like, look, my mom is insisting that we go to Thanksgiving, and I was trying to get out of it. So I go to this fucking stranger's Thanksgiving. I meet her mom and her dad, her brother, and her uncle. Her dad is a boxing reporter. Like, these are cool people. We drink martinis, and I'm just like, cool. I'm just, like, making up a fucking, she's like, says we go to college together. I went to fucking college in LA, and she went at somewhere in Chicago. I, like, make one reference to going up north, and I'm like, Chicago is north. But, like, that's what I say in LA. I'm like, that's something up north, whatever. I'm cute. And her uncle, who was a famous surrealist photographer, really interesting dude, and I sat next to him and talked to him mostly for Thanksgiving. She was like, we'll spend 1 hour there, we'll eat, and we'll leave. And we did. And we went to a bar where her insane friend Zan was, like, walked us there. It was like her childhood friend. We got kind of drunk at this bar, and then we leave. So we do some shots. We get into her fucking Toyota Camry. It was a white Toyota Camry. And, like, the bumper would fall off, and she would just, like, push it back on and be like, my car's a Lego, and we would laugh like crazy people. And she listened to Pigeon John the whole time, and that's how I learned about Christian rap. And she's like, it's good for Christian rap, right? And she wasn't wrong. It was good for Christian rap. But she lived in Logan Square, so we drove back from, her family lived in Oak Park, and we drove back to Logan Square, and we parked her car, and I just am like, what a charming neighborhood. Like, I'm so from LA. I've never been to, like, a bar in Chicago. All these bars are like old rummy dude bars. I'm like, this is great. We go to a bar called the Mutiny, which is like a fucking real punk rock bar in fucking Logan Square, and I'm in love. I'm just like, I'm gonna do everything here. What does that mean? We'll find out. I come in these red sparkly heels and jeans and, like, a fucking super tight sweater, and I was just, like, on fire. And we're walking into this bar, and the owner immediately was like, who are you? And nobody asked me for an ID. Nobody asked me for any sort of reality check. I was just like, I'm Gia. Now, if you may or may not know, my sister's actual name is Gia, but I just tell this guy my name is Gia, and, like, he's, like, giving me free shots. He's like, I love a California girl. His name is Ed, but also he looks like Ed Munster. Like, it's just so bizarre. He tells me he's a colonel in Kentucky. He, like, has a card. He brings it out, and he's like, ooh, I love girls like you. Really, really mean and sassy ones. You need to get hit. And I, like, play along with it because all of my drinks are fucking free. I've done you a great disservice because I also didn't explain what this bar looks like. I mean, like, it's a real punk rock bar. Like, the panels in the ceiling have, like, different bands of painted on it or something. The place fucking stinks. Has an old school telephone booth that I'm like, I'm gonna have sex in there. And I don't, not on this trip. But, like, there's a punk rock band playing. It's like my punk rock dream, you know? If you understand like who I am, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you understand who I am, it's like, yes, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But like, this guy's getting like really chatty and handsy with me, and I was just like, okay, well, we just disappear into the night. And then a couple days later, we decided to go back. It's like the day that I'm gonna fucking fly out, and we like go to this bar, and we just start drinking, and he shows up, and he's like, ooh, Gia, when you leave? And I'm like, I'm leaving today. And he's like buying me drinks. I don't want the drinks to stop, so now that he's asking me for my phone number, and I just like give him Gia's phone number, like her actual real phone number. And I was like, write that down, save that. Now, at the time, Gia and I used to play, mostly Gia would play this game, where if you would stop her and ask her for her number, she would tell you her name was Sabrina, and she would give you my number, and then I'd be like, what? I'd get a call, and a guy would be like, hey, we just met, and I'd be like, there's just like literally no way I wouldn't give you my phone number. But then I would be like, wait, am I about 5'4", 5'3", like giant boobs, dark hair, like whatever Gia's look was at the time. And they'd be like, yeah, that's you. And I'd be like, that's not me, that's Gia, here's her phone number. And then like, I would like give Gia's real phone number to them, and then like, you know, start the web of chaos. Well, I also started to do it back to her. So I gave Ed her phone number, and since I'd already given him her name, it was just like a beautiful marriage. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but me pretending to be Gia, to be my sister, was going to benefit me 100%, because, you know, I make some weird promise to him, like I'll fuck him or something horrible. And then I get on an airplane and go back to LA knowing that I wouldn't be back to Chicago for like at least 3 months. And then when I do get to Chicago, I've like lost 30 pounds. I like have a shorter haircut. I look like an entirely different person. But when I walk through the door, Ed's like, oh my God, it's Gia. And I was like, oh my God, how do you know Gia? And he was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm Sabrina, her twin sister. And he's like, oh my God, show me your ID. So now I take out my ID and it says Sabrina. And he's like, this is fucking crazy. I met your sister. She's wild. And I was like, yeah, she does get like that. You know, she's in rehab right now. And he's like, oh, I'm like, that's fine. I also party crazy. The whole time, every time I see him going forward, he's like, is this Sabrina or is this Gia? And if I was heavier, I would just be Gia. And if I was thinner, I would be Sabrina, because I used to really yo-yo back then. But like, I honestly, you can always be your own twin sister. Just make up a fucking alter ego for yourself. Just start calling yourself Darren and be like, ugh. Darren does get into a little bit of trouble now and again. Like, reality is what we make of it. People are wearing filters. I didn't feel like putting makeup on. This is a filter. I am my own twin sister.